Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. It's an formality we used to introduce the speakers in our associations, especially in Lions Clubs or Rotary. The same format which we are following it here also. So to introduce Mr. Pradeep Puranam, he did his BTech from IIT Madras, and then he did his Masters in IIM, Bangalore, batch of 2011. So he worked as a software engineer at IBM for 4 years, and then he moved into IBM for his higher studies. And then now he is currently as an assistant general manager in TVS Logistics Services. His passions includes technology, supply chain, puzzles, and quizzing. So let me introduce Pradeep to talk about supply chain here.
Yeah, I probably won't need that. Can anyone hear me? Right. Thanks. Thanks, Devakar. Thanks, Mr. Ramswamy. All right. The topic that I've chosen for today is technology in logistics. Don't worry, it's just 6 slides. I'm probably only going to refer to it very casually. All right. These were the first few things that came to my mind when I thought about logistics and when I thought about what could technology actually accomplish in the field of logistics. I'll try to keep it focused on in the Indian logistics scenario, because it varies from, the scenario varies from country to country. On the one hand, you have the stakeholders, ranging from a 4PL or a 3PL company like TVS Logistics. I'm speaking from experience, of course, so I might be a little biased from a 4PL point of view, but it can easily be adapted to a product company or a manufacturer or a supplier or a tech vendor, perhaps. So on the one hand, you have stakeholders. On the other hand, you have objectives, which eventually need to be converted to cash or savings, or need to lead to a stabler process, or which needs to be sustainable, basically. And you have a heady concoction of different technologies, which we are being constantly bombarded with day in and day out. Multiple players as well. The key takeaway from this battlefield, this seemingly imposing battlefield, would probably be alignment in terms of objectives. So, given that you have so many stakeholders at playing and who need to say yes to any technology being successful, you definitely need to pick the right objective and make sure that all the guys, or at least the majority of the guys, are okay with it. It's as simple as that. Believe me, this you could, in my experience, you could probably follow this as a mantra, and any new technology or new idea you get, you could run it past this check. Visibility, velocity, and variability. I mean, those are the 3 V's. It's like textbook supply chain management, but cash flow is something that I'll probably be covering more of that in the examples that I choose to discuss. There's also flexibility that kind of applies to 4PL, because we like the plug and play model, wherein we don't get impacted on the downside, and we don't get stuck, and we don't end up owning assets. Productivity and streamlining processes are other objectives that are also pretty important. All right. So I'm planning to cover 4 different technologies today. GPS, routing, that is vehicle routing. GPS, of course, all of you know. Vehicle routing, then WMS is actually warehouse management systems. MHE is, of course, material handling equipment. So these are core industrial technologies. I'm going to try to explain how IT blends with these hardcore manufacturing processes or businesses. All right. Let's start with GPS and telematics. Right. All right. Just a show of hands, how many of you have heard of what a milk run is? Have you heard of a phrase called milk run? All right. So let me just give you a background of where we are coming from. A milk run is basically where you have one single vehicle collecting material from suppliers, different suppliers, say auto components, and landing it at the doorstep of a company, say Ford or TVS motor companies. So that's typically what you would call a milk run. There's a lot of synchronization and planning that goes behind this, and it's pretty critical as far as the components reaching the plant on time is concerned. Because if it doesn't, even if a single part, there's a stock out for a single part, the entire car may not be made, and that could lead to line stoppage and losses for the manufacturer. So it's pretty critical, the kind of business that, the example that I'm talking about. To give you some more background about the GPS landscape, till 2008-2009, GPS receivers were banned in India. The government actually helped remove this ban, and that led to a deluge of different companies bringing in GPS and related technologies, telematics technologies, be it reporting or or associated automation with it. That was really a gate opener. Another major driver in this particular field was the industrial standard. Basically companies, large companies like Maruti, said one day, okay, let's set a standard and say that all the big large trucks that come in to our factory have to have GPS on them. So there are basically major drivers, and the government and large industries have played a significant part. As far as the technology is concerned, what I'm talking about here is GPS devices, a standalone device which basically transmit via satellite, and a software portal which helps decode the signals and reports that are generated. These happen live, and you could also have triggers associated with whether a vehicle which has a GPS device on it crosses a certain boundary or enters a certain supplier's location, if you want to automate based on that. So these are the kind of technologies that I'm talking about. Very real, very much in India, right? So we've really been, we've had a really nice experience in the last year or so. I think Mr. Ramswamy would agree to that. In terms of rolling out GPS devices and at least experimenting with what can be done. This has been the state of the art abroad for quite a long time, and we're pretty happy to see that it's been pretty successful in India. The kind of dominant business model here is the rental model. It kind of gels well with our flexible solutions that we offer. Let's say tomorrow a person says, no, I don't want these many trucks. You don't end up owning GPS devices in hand. The rental model really helps that, right? And the price point is as low as $700 to $1,000 per unit per month. All right, GSM is another technology. The price point goes even lower, but the fact is the accuracy of locating a truck with a GSM device is not so good. So there are trade-offs, right? So right, what's the challenge or benefits that the industry has thrown at us? What is something that has worked in the industry? I'd spoken about the checking with the stakeholders what they really want. So, these are a few of our experiences, so to speak. As far as the customer is concerned, before shelling out even a single rupee, he thinks, what's the kind of value add that I get from this? Anyway, he has decided to outsource his entire logistics operation to a third-party logistics provider. What's the real benefit that I get from this? Why should I shell out for this? So the kind of benefit that a customer or a manufacturer can get is the kind of visibility and reporting from the system. It helps track the supplier discipline. It helps track his the 3PL's discipline as well. Tomorrow he could generate a list of suppliers whom he thinks could be, who are not sticking to their window times, or who are not sticking to the time, or they're not supplying on time or something like that. It could also help him in terms of securing shipments. This is a cute little thing which we did a while ago, wherein we've kind of used the same GPS device and tied it to the lock or the latch of each truck. So if by chance the door gets opened inadvertently, there's a trigger which gets sent back, and the owner and the 4PL will know what happens, and if it's not a scheduled stop. So that there are those kind of automation that's available. There's also the long-term benefit which a manufacturer would get. Basically, think of a scenario where you don't know what's happening in the system. You just throw a shipment in a pipe and it reaches the plant after 5 days or 6 days. You don't even know how, there's a lot of variability at play here. So if you know for sure that your shipments are going to arrive, say, within plus or minus 3 hours, you could plan your safety stocks a lot better. So it's basically a case of reducing inventories. For that, it's a really long-term benefit which the manufacturer should be looking at. Once we have 100% GPS, the confidence level on the logistics provider will grow, and eventually they could move closer to just-in-time or whatever kind of manufacturing strategy that they choose. As far as the 4PL player is concerned, visibility and focus tracking is a real plus point. Right now, you don't know which vehicle is where, and you don't know who to call and who do you think is not on time. You just have to end up, making blanket phone calls all over the place. With this kind of a device, you know who's not on schedule, and you could follow up. It's a real value add for us. GPS-based triggers really helps you do real-time or parallel processing. Right. So basically, what happens is, let's take a case where there's a case of multiple billing, wherein there are, say, 10 suppliers along a route, and for each supplier there's a bill creator, or for each route there's a bill creator. So we can automate a lot of stuff using GPS triggers, where basically you create a geofence around each supplier, and as soon as the GPS device enters that place, you could have triggers, updating your ERP system or internal tracking system or something like that. And you could have easy automation there without any human interface, or you could have parallel processing. Even if you don't go real time, you could go halfway there. You could have parallel processing, wherein the trigger actually lets someone at a central location like a hub do some updates or prepare a report for the manufacturer. Pretty big value add for us. All right, the service providers are this is kind of a commoditized industry. So service provider kind of feels, why the hell should I spend more, right? So there's no incentive for him to be tracked. So he's invented curious ways to beat the system. Could be by skirting across the geofence. Could be by putting a bucket on top of the or a wet blanket on top of the GPS device. There are lots of weird things that happen, but yeah, we have to get over these things. The most important thing we have to remember the most important thing for service providers is cash flow. It's not the profit he makes, and it's assured cash flow at the end of every trip or at the end of every month. So that's the main benefit that he sees. So if we target that particular aspect, service providers are in with this whole GPS thing with you, right? They are, we should remember that they are important enablers of real-time and parallel processing. If the driver actually helps you out in, in part of the data entry, it's a real plus point for you. So those are the future directions in which GPS could take us. Right, and it's kind of thinking cross-industry. A fleet owner, for instance, he needn't really target only one customer. The fact that he has GPS can signal really well for him outside this narrow market. Could probably signal well for other customers as well. That's the thing. Yeah, the key takeaways I've tried to summarize over here. Basically, yeah, industry and customer support really matters. The extended market, which I spoke about, and aggregation help. Let's say there's a large-scale aggregation, like what a 3PL or a fleet owner or a 4PL player does. That kind of helps in rolling GPS out. It really differentiates a normal fleet owner from a person who actually has GPS. Rental schemes definitely soften the cash flow blow for the fleet owner or for the 3PL. Customized reports actually help differentiate. Believe me, people actually, it's very easy to get a GPS device on Alibaba or something and then just, do a hodgepodge of things. But the whole value add that the manufacturer really expects is the customized reports, like dwell time reports. How much time does a vehicle spend not moving? Those kind of insights are really important in the long run. So that helps differentiate. Yes, if piggybacking with vendor rationalization is basically a way to ensure the adoption of GPS. So let's say you're rationalizing vendors. This could be one of the bases based on which you could rationalize your vendor base. Yeah, market vehicles definitely play spoil sport. There's a trend in the logistics business where you attach or own part of the fleet, and then for the variation, you go to the market and place vehicles on spot basis. So now you cannot really plug a GPS device on a market vehicle because collection is going to be a problem for you. Yes, for milk runs you may be able to manage, but for long trips it's going to be really difficult. So you need to keep that in mind. So this is one of the limitations which we work with. Alright, so much for GPS. I mean, feel free to ask any questions. Seems to be a very silent audience over here. Alright, or towards the end. Alright, fine. Okay, routing, TMS and real-time systems, right? So real-time you can substitute with mobile platforms basically. So what's the landscape again? Milk run trips, like I had mentioned before. The technology that we're talking about is basically you have a network. Alright, let me ask a very simple question. How many of you have Android phones? Right, great. How many of you use Google Maps to, say, negotiate with an auto driver or something like that? How many of you use Google Maps? I mean, any new city, not necessarily Chennai. Yeah. Definitely. Okay, fine. So routing is basically that, right? I mean, just that it's daily collection from a set of suppliers. You just do it once every 3 months or something like that. So you need to know the optimal route. You could be optimizing different things. You could be optimizing cost. You could be optimizing the total fleet size, because the fleet owner might give you a smaller variable rate if you use his vehicle for more trips or something like that. You could be optimizing the total distance traveled, or the total time could be optimized. A lot of things can be done with this. This is more like next gen, I would say. There's still a long way to go before we see real TMSs and vehicle routing be implemented in India. Frankly, there are a whole host of reasons for that. Alright, SaaS. How many of you have heard of SaaS? Software as a service, please. I mean, come on, IT crowd. Right? Okay, so SaaS is a good way to introduce TMS. We've seen quite a few vendors doing this. It's the right way to go because, again, instead of buying a whole product one-off, you have a rental model where both people win. We win, I mean, the 4PL or 3PL would win in terms of flexibility. The tech vendor would win in the long run. So that's one thing which has worked. Yeah, price point, okay, fine. What are the challenges or benefits that the customer could get? Basically, it's, routing, TMS and real-time, all of them target the planning aspect. So all that they want is timely collection of material. They give window times. Window times could be as small as half an hour per supplier every day. So there could be 10 suppliers on a route. You just need to make sure that a particular vehicle is there, and it's it makes sure that it has the capacity to collect. So there's it's being utilized properly. All those kind of things basically you can automate it. The tricky part is you have to have schedules up front to make sure that this happens. You need to be able to measure stuff, right? So one of the main reasons why it's not taken off in Indian logistics is because the packaging is not standardized. So what happens because of that? You can't really measure. So you can't really, no inputs, no output, obviously. So pretty simple. So another very basic thing is like, let's say somebody comes up with a mobile platform or something. It's like the solution totally works, it kicks ass, and you go to the manufacturer and find that, oh, oops, mobiles are not allowed inside the plant. So it could be as silly as that, as basic as that. So Lot of challenges in rolling out routing or TMS. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Here's one more thing. If you look at this one, the Indian GIS is pretty complex. So all of you might be thinking that Google Maps is pretty good, and the easiest thing to do is just upload all these suppliers and write a JavaScript or some code or something like that, and do it on the fly. Kind of optimize this. It's pretty easy, right? No, not really, because Google Maps does not allow you to poll it more than a fixed number of times. It charges you actually. So you can't really put all your suppliers on the map and then write a software or a code to kind of poll it say 100 or 500 times a day or something like that. No, you cannot do that. So there are certain limitations. So you do need to, there is a challenge in terms of GIS. GIS is basically a geographical information system, basically a network of roads or which captures distances and helps you determine times. So there is a definite challenge here. Right. So what's really gonna work or has worked is the SaaS or rental scheme is definitely in line with the flexibility aspect of things. So the customer would buy into that. The 4PL or 3PL vendor also buy into that. A reliable mobile platform would definitely score over HHT. HHT is like a handheld tool, or most of these are really costly. So I see some scope of potential for Android, in Android mobile phones in this. In terms of cost, yes, definitely. And also in terms of usability, because everybody has a mobile phone these days. I'm pretty sure people can adapt to this. Right, integration with 3PL, 4PL processes is pretty vital, because at the end of the day, the user is going to be the 3PL or the 4PL player, or the logistics team, whoever it is. So the main focus, the main gains would obviously be streamlining of processes, followed by savings of overtime. So your employees don't work too long or something like that. And then the third gain would probably be savings in terms of optimized routes or something like that, right? Okay. Right. Warehouses. Fine. So the landscape is here is basically, you have large warehouses, small warehouses, and medium warehouses. What's the, have any of you been to a warehouse of late, a large warehouse or any warehouse in recent times? Right. So let me just give you a small overview of what I'm talking about. This could be like it could stock finished, kitted finished products, or it could stock components, or it could stock spares. So very simple, right? So large warehouses could be as large as 100,000 to 200,000 square feet, pretty large. Small warehouse could be as small as a house, so maybe 1,500 square feet. So that's the kind of range we're looking at. Velocity is a very important factor. I'll tell you why. I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a finished product, you've already sold it. You have a spares warehouse. You have two kinds of demands that could come onto your spares warehouse. One is the regular demand, where you have a user who goes to a service center, and then it's a regular service, and then the spares warehouse supplies a part or something like that. The second is there's a vehicle off-road. So basically it's stuck somewhere in the middle of NH45. So what happens is he needs service within 6 hours. So there's basically there's a requirement in terms of velocity there, or you need to service it really fast. You need to find the part fast. So those kind of requirements are there. So that's the landscape we're looking at. There's a lot of variety here. WMS, the thing about WMS is people have actually, in India, people try to jugaad. So why go for something really expensive, right? So why do you want to do that? I mean, you could do that with SAP or your own ERP, a manufacturer's point of view. You have SAP, you have SAP Warehouse Manager. Just, as long as you know which location your part is in or which zone your part is in, you're fine. Your guys can find it. They rely a lot on people. What WMS tries to do is, it makes it more process oriented. How it does it is with the help of something called AIDC. AIDC is, okay, sorry for the jargon, it's basically a barcode or an RFID, right? So it's a way to automatically capture data. So what it does is, it says, okay, I don't need, a zone could be as big as like 2,000 square feet. And people could miss deadlines. They might have put something here, or they might have picked stuff, and just like a library, or a bookstore, you pick a book, you don't want to buy it finally, okay, you leave it somewhere else. A lot of chaos can happen in a warehouse. So basically, it kind of helps you by barcoding, say, the location and the part, so that you have some kind of, very simple mapping here. So that's the kind of thing we're looking at. Right. So the thing with large warehouses is, there's the way in which you design your zones. As in, you could be using the least number of zones here. There's a lot of logic and thought that has gone behind developing WMS. It's going to take some time to customize it to Indian conditions. I would probably fancy the chances of a new warehouse that comes up for any company adopting WMS a lot more than pushing a WMS for an existing warehouse. It's it's pretty easy, because when you have a fresh start, you start from scratch. It's really easy to do all this. Again, the business model really matters. Instead of an outright licensing model where you end up paying a huge sum of money for, and it's valid for 3 years. Let's say you buy a license for 3 years. There are subscription models, rental models, which kind of helps you, break it up into chunks and, make your CapEx planning a lot more, a lot easily manageable. There's also the AMC, annual maintenance contract, a pretty simple thing. ERP integration is one thing which is definitely the next step. So you could have a standalone WMS, it's like housekeeping basically. You know where your utensils are and stuff like that, but there is strong interaction with ERP. Basically the problem is all manufacturers have already invested and bought an ERP in India. So they either have SAP or Oracle or whatever it is, and then they expect the WMS or anything new to fall in line, right? So that's another thing. So people need to be very conscious about that. But the good news is that inventory management, any new WM tools that are in the market, they can adapt to the existing ERP systems. Most of the big players at least can do that. All right. So what are the challenges? Where are the challenges, really for the customer? High velocity. Retail actually has been a leader in this. So they have been a real leader in terms of adopting WMS. Why? Because they have sales, quick sales. So they need to have like they need to ship a lot of items within 5 days. So those kind of demands come on them, and they need to be able to respond fast. So the velocity component is definitely there. They could have a big sale or a promotion, and therefore they need this kind of capability. Large warehouses and new warehouses. So basically any new warehouse, you would benchmark it against an existing warehouse and say, okay, look, I want to reduce the number of people who work in this warehouse from say 150 to 100, and I want to make each person more productive. Very simple, motives. 4PL player, again, we train fewer people and we get higher productivity. It's like very easy, and we reduce the search time reduction, and we are able to find whatever we need to look for. Believe me, in a 1 lakh square foot warehouse, it's very easy to not find stuff. It's really, and people get penalized for all these kind of things, right? So, all right. So takeaways: the new high velocity warehouses, obviously are ideal candidates. Price points, yes, can be off-putting. I mean, you take this kind of capex requirement, it can get shot down very quickly. the rental or EMI kind of a scheme would really help. There is some scope for for maybe for medium or small warehouses for Android, simple apps like warehouse management or housekeeping kind of apps. But again, for large warehouses, I don't think people would go for something that is not off the shelf. It's easily replicable. SAP can easily replicate this, or Oracle can easily replicate this in its next version. So whatever is actually implemented, any value add, that could be easily replicable. A customer, customer can decide, okay, look, I want a WMS from a new warehouse, and then the 4PL or 3PL could be, there probably is no real value add. So the value addition with any WMS that you bring in has to be really genuine. So that's one key takeaway. Yeah, and then there's the ERP integration, which is the next logical step. How are we doing on time? Yeah. All right. So good news is that this is the last slide. So, right. So MHE, material handling equipment, right? So you have battery or LPG operated machines. Very few diesel operated. This is what I am experienced with. I'll talk about these. The kind of equipment that I'm talking about are forklifts and stuff that handles large weights, like could be 1-ton pallets or something like that. Tow trucks, loaders, and breach stackers. Breach stackers, all these, basically you have like a 5-level storage. You would need such equipment, and it's basically efficient packing, very simple. So what do you want? What does the client or the customer expect? Say he's bought a machine or he's rented a machine from you. He would need quick downtime response, right? So let's say a machine goes bad, he would definitely need a quick response. And all that he cares about is actually the total cost of ownership. The landscape has kind of changed. Instead of a one-time sale drive the price really down, there's basically a significant aftermarket portion for this. So he does. If you sell a cheap device and it'll say it breaks down a lot more in the next 3 years, that's probably not going to keep the customer happy. So that's one thing which the customer will really be worried about. As far as the 4PL player or the machine vendor, whoever it is, his response and the visibility that he gets is really important. So he needs to respond fast. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of trouble. Material is not going to move, and it's going to lead to a lot of problems downstream. So that's one thing. And the level of control that particular player is comfortable with, which it could be, he could rely completely on automation, or he could want like a person to intervene in between or something like that. And the type of stuff that they do monitor is, how many hours is an engine running, try to predict when it will fail, those kind of things. Pretty, it's pretty new, and there are quite a few vendors out there, tech vendors, who sell items like this. Who sell pluggable devices. You just plug it onto an MHE. Basically, it has stuff like accelerometers and a very simple way of knowing how the driver is driving the vehicle around. High G forces or something. It could trigger saying, let's say he turns very fast or something like that. Very simple devices. So that's the thing. And GPS is basically like a trigger, just to trigger that the engine suddenly stopped, in between or something like that. So that's one thing. Adoption, there could be significant resistance in this, because people, what they tend to do is they link man to machine. Okay, so they say that, okay, here's the operator, here's his machine. How he performs translates to his pay. So people try to work around that and to beat the system. So there are a lot of challenges, in this particular field. The other challenge is the price. Since these devices are new in the market, they could come up to at least 20-30%. So they need to really work on that a bit. And the key takeaways here again are monitoring and control. That is the first thing that people start with. So that's the primary requirement. Anybody you ask, okay, look, I want to monitor my equipment, I want to monitor my people. Let's keep it very simple. So you approach any person, any stakeholder, any decision maker. That's all that they really care about in the first step. And the transaction model or the pricing model, again, it's pretty key. So if they could convert it to a rental kind of a model, really help. It's like really easy to push things. Yeah, integration with 3PL process is really vital. And I mean, this is kind of a generic point, but yeah, it's like anyway. Right, so that kind of brings me to the end of this talk. I hope I haven't bombarded you with too much info all in one session. I hope this was really useful for you. I mean, any questions that you have at this stage, I'll be happy to take. And yeah, thanks to Mr. Ramswamy, Karthik, Deepak, and Hari. They're part of TVS Logistics. They helped me put together a few of these slides. Sure.
Not from your field. Maybe I'm not from your field. Just to know things. Does the GPS can track or works when there is clouds?
Okay, good question.
No, during rainy season, how do you track that? I mean, if it doesn't track, I mean, how many?
Definitely works. I don't think it is not busted or something. Yeah.
The GPS implementation part which I suggested, actually I had implemented the entire GPS. Okay. We have no such issues at all. So it's a myth. People say it won't work and things like that. It works. It's all again with the, like you said, with the driver and the service provider. If they want to make a hell of it, they can make it. They can spoil your entire supply chain. They can make it haywire. They can do it. But technologically, there's nothing which is going to happen. It's been proved.
See, again, from a tech perspective, I don't think there's any problem in terms of weather conditions or anything. But there have been problems for AGPS. AGPS is like your mobile GPS chip, right? So there have been problems known if you're in an urban environment or something like that. You can't really transmit signals for 15 minutes or something like that. So I don't know of any problems with in terms of weather conditions or something.
Okay, one more question is that the maps in India, where do you buy it or how is that? Because even in Google, certain areas are not mapped, and it is going through collaboration.
Absolutely. So
from volunteers, from even from street level volunteers.
Absolutely. One ways is one thing which keep changing, right? And those are something like that. And if you've seen Google's estimates of time, the time it takes for me to get from my home to my office is supposedly 25 minutes, which is like a pipe dream in Chennai at 8:30. So yeah, leaves a lot to be desired, definitely. GIS, no, we've not really gone ahead and built our own GIS and all that. The reason being, that there's a reason why I said it was next gen, because it's new territory for us too. We've not really, gone ahead and commissioned a certain player to build a GIS or anything like that. We've not taken any steps like that.
Okay.
The second reason was, to address certain limitations which Google Maps had. So Google Maps just will not do. I mean, there are hardcore limitations with that. It might give you you can make small assumptions, or you could make, let's say you have 100 locations and you add one more. It's basically order of n, right? So you have to find the distance for that location to all the other previous 100. So that's the scalability that you're looking at. So if you want, you could do it manually or whichever way.
I understand. One more thing is that I've used Google Plus actually.
Okay.
And my wife uses it to monitor me. She can monitor whether I'm sitting here, whether what I'm talking is correct through Google.
Okay.
It's Google Plus. If I give the access to her, she can see where I'm sitting.
Absolutely. Latitude,
okay?
right?
Yeah, latitude.
Google latitude.
Okay,
yeah.
so will that be a threat for your business model in future? Like, if Google opens up their revenue for this, I mean.
Not really.
I pay and I use.
Any service provider is welcome to our office. Whoever has a strong solution. 4PL, right? It's the thing is, doing Google Maps alone is not a complete solution. Okay, so that's probably one thing we have to keep in mind. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot more planning to it. The vehicle routing, for instance, is one thing which you also need to crack. So there's a lot more to it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
This is about the MHE that you have shown some good example and talked about some retail engineering. But I'm not sure whether the similar kind of concept can be applied in kind of like in India or something like that.
Definitely.
But
Yes.
I believe there is a lot of scope in construction engineering.
Yes, MHE
So,
is
so
definitely there.
keep in
Yes.
mind, is there any major challenge which you found from your experience, and how those kind of challenges can be overcome based on the solution whatever been already identified in the retail engineering?
Absolutely right. First thing, I just want to make a small correction. Retail was for the warehousing part, not for the material handling part. I just want to make that very clear. The material handling actually, construction is definitely the dominant segment, and all these solutions are for not just the construction. Wherever it could be a bottling plant, for all you know, there are a lot of requirements. So it's industry agnostic, so to speak. It can apply for any. It's something which hinges on the material handling equipment, not on the industry, right? So it could be used anywhere. So whoever, it's like you could think of it as a value-added service. Anybody, any machine vendor, anyone who sells the machine, could provide this as a value-added service. Basically, the customer would know then that this particular machine at this location has gone down, and we need to do something about it really fast. Central office would definitely know. So it's industry agnostic basically. And construction is definitely a big chunk, big player in this MHE equipment, and they definitely do stand to benefit from this.
Thanks.
I think that point came up accurately when you were presenting about the readiness of your labor workforce.
Correct.
To adopt and adapt to the technology innovation that you want to bring in.
Right.
So the first question is, how do you address that? That is one. The second was with respect to the system integration point that you mentioned about WMS and the ERP solutions that you have. So the related question there is, so typically in your system integration landscape that you see, I'm sure there are multiple systems that you need to do this with, the SI bit with. So what are some of the typical technology challenges that you're seeing? That's one. And because of that, is it affecting your cycle time so that by the time you get there, you've lost an advantage, probably a blue ocean advantage of, getting to that first?
Okay. So I'll take the first question first. As far as the adoption is concerned, there's definitely a change management angle to this. So we need to, it's a very standard process. You pilot or have a proof of concept, and then you have like a test crowd or something like that, and then you let them do the word of mouth kind of a thing, and then we collect what's going wrong or what's going right. And only based on that do we, roll out projects like these. Otherwise, the threat is that it could work for 2 or 3 months, but the control won't last beyond that. Yeah, it won't be sustainable. So you can't do like a Six Sigma or something like that, and then, leave it after 6 months. Say, okay, the control's there, but you should monitor the people as well. So there's like a change management that follows this kind of a, an advancement. It's definitely there. I mean, honestly, as far as the new technologies are concerned, WMS warehouse or anything, I don't think we are there yet. But as far as GPS is concerned, it's the people who really could object to it would be the service providers, and there's a strong change management thing going on there. Okay, well, the second question was regarding system integration. Right. I'll give you an example. Okay. Warehousing. Let's say you have a SAP ERP or any standard ERP there, and you have something like an Infor WMS or a Oracle WMS or something like that come in. They do have a web services interface. So the system integration is not really that difficult. And most of the things, when you have two sources of truth, the kind of problems that you identified, right? You still need to revert to the ERP as a single source of truth. So the WMS is just like a dummy system which ideally should be standalone, and what happens is it's a two-stage process. We have standalone wherein people do this, and then you go for integration. So it's a long-drawn process. So you can't just jump into integration first off and say that it's going to work. But okay, let's say SAP does come ahead and say it's our WMS, we'll do the plumbing or whatever. So it's going to work. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of complications there.
Hi. When you were talking about this WMS and ADC, you were telling two things. One was you said mapping of when you map your system this mapping helps you to reduce velocity or improve your velocity. How does it help you? That's one thing. Second thing is you said you get train fewer people but increase your productivity. Your productivity increases very highly. I mean, your productivity you see a large.
Absolutely.
How do you do that? These are two interesting things.
One way in which this could happen is it reduces search time, right? So when you have, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have this table, you have 3 divisions. You barcode each of these 3 divisions. You keep items which are also barcoded, right? So what happens is typically you'll have a part code or item code or something like that. You just look it up and see where are all the locations where it's present. And then, there's a geographical mapping. It tells you that, look, go to this particular zone and go to this particular bin. So it's a lot easier to locate items. So the churn is faster, the velocity improves, right? Productivity. One person controls 2,000 square feet. Now you can control 4,000 square feet.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This reminds me of a small drama that I was acting some years back, where my director was very, very particular about putting a big, with chalk marks, right? Scene 1, props. Scene 2, props. Scene 3, props. Right? He was so disciplined that we need to keep all the props, before entering into the scene, so that we don't run around searching for what we need for a particular scene. So I think that's an example which
It's a good pattern.
acts to this. Yes.